In this episode, we look at how to take feedback effectively. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps, Big Changes. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps, Big Changes, where I share simple strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Greg Clunas, and in this episode, we're looking at how to learn from feedback, how to take feedback effectively and actually apply it to our lives rather than getting upset, rather than feeling frustrated or beating ourselves up or any of the things that we might be doing now. And this is a super important episode. This is something that I personally struggle with and have my entire life. I've always had a struggle getting and receiving feedback and actually taking that for what it's worth, taking what I can from it, learning from it, and moving forward in that way. So in this episode, I want to try and help you figure out how to do that for yourself. Have you ever had someone try to correct you? Maybe it was a friend suggesting that your way of thinking about a situation was too biased. Or maybe it was a professor who criticized your work in a way that didn't feel great. We each receive feedback in different ways. This can be based on habits ingrained from when we were a child, experiences we've had in our adult life, or any number of other things. Getting feedback from people doesn't always feel good, especially if that person isn't great at giving feedback. And in a perfect world, we would be able to take criticism at its face value and not find offense in it. But we don't live in a perfect world. So today, we're going to be talking about a few ways to deal with people in our lives giving us feedback. People are going to have opinions about us, whether it's about what we do, how we act, or what we think. My goal for this episode is to help you take that feedback with a grain of salt and turn it into something that might actually help you. Because, well, we're most likely going to get it anyway, so we may as well learn how to use it. But before we jump into the episode, let's take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Green Chef. One of my goals for the new year is to become an absolute beast in the kitchen. I want to be able to cook the kind of meals that make your taste buds excited. That's why I'm such a fan of Green Chef. Green Chef is the first USDA certified organic meal kit company. Ingredients come pre-measured, perfectly portioned, and mostly prepped, so you can spend less time stressing and more time enjoying delicious home-cooked meals. Green Chef makes eating well easy and affordable. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, or just trying to eat a little healthier, they've got you covered with awesome recipes. One of the first meals I ever made with Green Chef was this salmon dish with kale, couscous, and dried cranberries. It was so good. I think I've made it like 5 times since then. And since all of the meals are put together by professional chefs, I get to follow simple directions and cook an awesome meal that tastes great and makes me look good. So why not join me? Go to greenchef.com/90tinyleaps and use the code 90tinyleaps to get $90 off, including free shipping. Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating well. So head over to greenchef.com/90tinyleaps and use the code 90tinyleaps to get $90 off, including free shipping. The power of feedback is that we can see things about ourselves from an outside perspective. Sometimes we hide things from ourselves. We behave in ways outside of our character or make mistakes. It's normal. When there are people in our lives who care about us and who can give us honest feedback, those comments can be incorporated into the way we think about ourselves. They can help us become a better version of ourselves. But that doesn't make it any less painful to be reminded that we make mistakes. Even if it's ultimately valuable, the initial sting of hearing that feedback can often hurt. So what do? Well, we can start to reframe the way we think about feedback by trying to better understand that feedback, at least feedback that is worth taking. It's not about us as an individual. Rather, it's about our behavior in a very specific situation. And it isn't always negative. Feedback has the power to reinforce the strengths that we already have, to clarify the consequences and effects of our behavior, and increase our ability to see where we're going wrong on our own. But how do we take that feedback and turn it into something constructive? Well, it's not easy. Usually it involves a little bit of putting our pride to the side, which isn't always a simple feat to accomplish. When we put our pride to the side, we become less likely to take offense to the feedback. Being receptive to new ideas and different opinions creates an opportunity for continued growth. We can even do this when the feedback is coming from someone who is actually upset with us. Because underneath the emotional response, such as anger or sadness, lies the truth behind what they think about us and the situation. Listening not to respond or defend ourselves, but rather to hear what the person is saying is a great way to grasp more than just anger or frustration. So that's the strategy. Start listening to the feedback you receive from a place of understanding rather than a place of defending. You don't have to agree with the feedback, but there is a fundamental reason why they're sharing it. Try to really hear what that reason is. Because at the end of the day, it's not our job to reciprocate with the same emotions or to defend ourselves or to cower when confronted with another person's big emotions. We can take a step back, do our absolute best to think from our rational brain instead of our emotional brain, and try to digest what it is that we're receiving as feedback. And to do this successfully, we have to make a promise to ourselves to not beat ourselves up for the feedback that we get. It's not always bad. We're human. Think of it as an opportunity for continued growth. But what do we do if we completely disagree with the feedback that we're getting? I mean, that's natural. That's going to happen. Just listening and making sure we understand is key to allowing space for the other person to be heard. When the feedback is coming from a connection that we value, the relationship can even strengthen as a result of overcoming a miscommunication. And speaking of miscommunications, asking questions when getting some criticism can help you better understand it. Because until you understand why a piece of criticism was given, you'll always naturally feel the need to be defensive. Taking the time to ask questions and get clarity can help improve your response dramatically. And there's no shame in asking what could have been done differently. It's important to keep in mind where the criticism is coming from as well. Feedback we receive from people that we know and trust is going to be more accurate and often kinder than feedback from some rando who woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Learning to receive feedback with appreciation, regardless of if the feedback was good, is what we want to strive for in this. You've got to give serious props to the few people who can take criticism, understand it, deconstruct it, and then pick out the pieces that they think could actually help them. That's what we want to be able to do. That's the skill that we're trying to gain here. And trust me, it's totally natural to feel upset when you get a piece of negative feedback. It's easy to wallow in self-pity after someone gives us a harsh comment. And honestly, it's so much easier to think of ourselves as bad people or as a failure or as useless when someone criticizes us. But as you can probably guess, it's just not worth it. What does that actually do? The only thing we accomplish by going down this path is making ourselves feel bad. Instead, try to recognize something. We all have bad days. We all snap at people we care about. We all slip up on something that we shouldn't have. We all behave so selfishly that someone else gets hurt in the process. No matter what it is that we're getting feedback on, using it as a tool to just make ourselves better people is significantly more valuable than beating ourselves up. If we can accomplish this, we can not only become better people as we utilize the feedback, we can also develop our emotional intelligence. And if we want to dig even deeper after the criticism has been delivered, we can continue that work independently of that person. Now, this might come in the form of talking to a therapist, journaling about how we felt about the comment, or just talking to a trusted friend. It doesn't really matter. Because criticism, it has the power to make us lose our sense of self, our confidence, and our passion. But if we stopped thinking about criticism as an inherently bad thing, what would happen? So the next time someone takes a moment to give you some negative feedback, try this. Stop beating yourself up. Stop going into defense mode and just listen. Hear what they have to say. Ask questions to clarify. Gain an understanding. Then move on. You'll be slightly better as a person for it. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope this was helpful. If you are tuning in for the first time, be sure to click subscribe wherever you're listening, or if you're watching over on YouTube, be sure to click subscribe there as well. We are publishing new episodes pretty much every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Every now and then we'll do like a Tuesday, Thursday. So make sure you click subscribe so you don't miss any of that. I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate you for spending time with us today. Thank you. Thank you. And before we go, I want to give one last shout out to today's sponsor, Green Chef. You can head over to greenchef.com/90tinyleaps to take up today's offer, or just click the link in the description of this episode. Thank you again. And remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.